Hi, and welcome to the Greenberg Project. This is Greenberg. Today we're going to make gluten-free onion rings and pepper spears. Okay, if you haven't noticed, there's an increasingly large number of individuals now that are experiencing wheat allergies or gluten intolerance. It's called celiac disease. I'm not going to go over that in this video. I may have another video specifically dedicated to that. But I live in a gluten-free household, and I like to eat. So there are a lot of foods that I really missed, and we've developed some great recipes. Onion rings is one of them. Fried food is probably one of the hardest foods to eat in a gluten-free diet. So we're going to make onion rings and pepper spears. You're going to need a pan. It's a stainless steel pan. Works fine, something that you can put your oil in and get it real hot. A pepper. If you don't like peppers, you can leave the pepper out. Of course, an onion. Some corn oil. That's the best for deep frying it, in my opinion. 2 eggs. The eggs are going to be used to coat the peppers and the onions with, and then you'll see the process as it goes by. Flour. Now, obviously, in a gluten-free diet, you can't have flour. It's one of the very important ingredients of deep frying any type of food. So we're going to use a tapioca flour. You can use potato starch. There's other gluten-free products out there. I prefer either potato starch or tapioca flour. I think they work the best. And you're going to need some rice checks. Now, the General Mills is naturally gluten-free. It's just gluten-free rice mix. You're going to want to check your box though if you get any type of generics, because oftentimes they're either manufactured in a facility that produces products with wheat, or they're just not gluten-free. Even corn checks, which, as you probably can guess, a lot of people on a gluten-free diet eat corn products because there's no wheat in them. But you have to check the back and see how it's been processed, and really be sure that you have a gluten-free product or someone can get really sick. Okay, so I've got my vegetables chopped here. I've got my peppers, my onions. I've decided to add a few mushrooms here as well. Fried mushrooms are a really, really good snack, really easy to make. You can even add a tomato if you want. I didn't have time to chop a tomato, so I'm going to leave that one out today. But really any vegetable that you prefer can be fried. The next step is you have to get the checks into a form that's going to be able to basically substitute for any type of cracker or breadcrumb that you would normally deep fry with. And to do that, I'm going to take these checks and I'm going to crush them in a mortar or pestle. Doesn't matter, you can crush them, you can take 2 metal bowls together and crush them that way if you want. You can really crush them however it works. I think this works the best for me. If you don't have one of these, I'd recommend getting one. I'm just going to fill up the bowl here as much as I can. Crush these into a nice fine powder. Not really a powder, you still want a little bit of texture to them, because that's going to give you that crunch. Okay, so your end product is going to look something like this. I don't know if you can see that really good or not. Give them a light here for you. So it's still going to have a little bit of texture to it, a little bit of grain, but you want to break them up so that they stick. Now you just dump it in a bowl, and move on to the next batch. Okay, so I finished crushing up my checks here. I'm going to add those in. This is the consistency that you want. You want to make sure that it's small enough to where it's going to stick to your vegetables and big enough to where it's still going to get you some crunch. You don't need it completely powdered, because that's what you're going to use the flour for. The flour is what's going to hold the egg on there for you, and then the egg will in turn stick to the checks, give you that crunch. One thing that I didn't mention as far as ingredients that you'll need is spices and seasonings. It's up to you what you use. I just use a little bit of salt and pepper. I like to throw a little heat in there, so I'm going to put a little chipotle chili pepper in there as well. You can put really anything you want in there, dill, oregano, whatever your favorite spices are. I cook with some weird spices, so if you ever need to take anything out or put anything else in, that's completely understandable. So I'm going to put in probably maybe a half a teaspoon of salt. probably just a little bit more than half a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon of pepper. And of course the chipotle pepper for some heat. Oops, you don't need that. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm just going to give that a quick stir with my hands. Doesn't have to be completely colored. I mean, you're going to season this up afterwards with some salt and pepper anyway. These are going to be some hidden flavors. Okay, so now that my crushed rice checks are done, you'll be able to see I've cracked my egg. You want to whip the egg up as best you can. That's going to be your major ingredients to get those rice checks to stick. And then the oil. You really don't need that much oil when you're frying vegetables like this. You know, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll fill the pan completely up with oil. Unless you're going to use that oil over and over, don't bother, because it's just a waste of oil. I got this. This is an off-brand. I'm not going to plug the store I bought it from, but it was about $3. I'm going to put in probably the bottom inch or two. And even that's probably a little bit more than I really need. Okay, so I'm going to get organized here. I'm going to get all my bowls set up accordingly so that I can bread these. We're going to put them on a plate, and when we come back, we'll go over how to bread those, and then eventually we'll come back and we'll fry them all up. All right, thanks. Okay, so now what we're going to do now is we're going to bread these and get them ready for frying. Now, when you do this, you're going to have some wet ingredients. You have the egg and some dry ingredients, the flour and the potato starch, tapioca starch, and your crushed up rice checks. The important thing you want to remember here is you're going to have a hand that handles the wet stuff and a hand that handles the dry stuff. So I'll give you a quick example. And I get these screwed up all the time. You're going to end up washing your hands about 5 times doing this. Okay, so you're going to dump the onion into the potato starch or into the tapioca flour. Put it into the egg. Mix it around in there. Drop it into the crushed up checks. Take your dry hand again. Just kind of fluff it up a little bit. All stuck. And they have something that looks a little bit like that. Okay, so I'm going to do a few more of those. I'm going to actually take a couple of onions, just throw them in the tapioca flour, get them ready to go. It's just quicker. Into the egg. Into the checks. This is just a fantastic snack. Like I said, when I started eating gluten-free, because I'm in a gluten-free household, I missed my fried food. Just couldn't get fried food that tasted the same. And this is a great recipe. I like this better now. I prefer it. I have friends that I make it for. They like it better than regular fried food. So there's definitely a misconception out there that if you're eating gluten-free, you're going to eat stuff that's not flavorful, or you're going to have to give up any foods. There's no foods you're going to have to give up. The peppers, they're going to be a little bit tougher because they're a little bit smoother. They're not going to hold the flour and egg as well, but you just have to work them a little bit more. You can still do it. You'd be surprised how good these come fried up, even when it looks like there's not a lot of stuff on there. It still fries up really beautifully. And of course, a mushroom. These are my favorite. Same thing, into the chunks. If you really want to get these things really breaded, you can put them back in the egg. But you're probably going to get your egg a little bit nasty, a little bit full of crumbs. So it's up to you. Oh, look at that. Get a nice close-up of that. That's going to be delicious. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bread up the rest of these, and when we come back, we're going to fry them up, and then we're going to try them. All right, I'll see you then.